Welcome, g'day. This is Two Rabbis in a Podcast. I know you're seeing three here. Your eyes are fine. But here I am, Rabbi Mordechai Becher.
Yeshua Karsh.
And our guest is Rabbi Yissochar Berry, who, with your permission, we call Reb Suki Berry. Is that okay? And so we were talking a couple of weeks ago about music in Judaism and the central role that music played in the Beis Hamikdash, in the temple, the role that music plays in communicating the language of the soul, as Reb Moshe Shapiro put it, the idea of music as a tremendous chokhmah, a wisdom, which the Gaon of Vilna is cited by his student, Rabbi Yisrael of Shklov, as saying contains the wisdom of Kabbalah, mysticism, and the functioning of the soul. And if you understood it, you could understand everything. We're expecting all of this from Reb Suki, by the way. He will explain to us all of this in hopefully 5 minutes or less. And so that's what we're talking about. Before we begin our our discussion with Suki, and it's on Zoom, so there's no waterboarding possible. So anyway, just two more sources which we didn't mention. One I came across in Daf Yomi, a little ahead of Daf Yomi, but fascinating. The Mishnah in Sanhedrin talks about the prohibitions of idolatry. It says if a person sacrifices to an idol, if they pour wine in front of the idol or on the altar, etc., zibeach, nisech, kiter, if they burn incense to the idol, all these are considered to be prohibited acts of worship of the idol. The Meiri, Reb Menachem HaMeiri, the great Provençal medieval scholar, in his commentary writes that he says if you sang to the idol, that is also considered to be an act of worship to the idol. Fascinating. The Talmud doesn't mention this, the Mishnah doesn't mention this, but the Meiri does say that, and that is totally in accordance with what we have learnt, which is the Levium, that was an act of quasi avoda, a worship, not even quasi, it might be actually avoda, but whatever. The Meiri's language is a hechsher for the korban, meaning a preparation, enablement of the actual sacrifice. That's a fascinating source, I think, at least, that just came up. The other source I wanted to mention, this is part of my introduction. By the way, you notice I'm not wearing glasses for regularly. I just had surgery, so I can see without glasses, but I do need them for reading. And when I look over the top, it's not because I'm upset at anyone. It's just that I can see it. Okay. All right. In any case, Rabbi Yehuda Halevi in the Kuzari says the wisdom of music was so important to the nation and so important, is such a pride to our nation, that it was designated to be created and to be performed by the aristocracy of the people, the Levites, who made practical use of the tunes and music in the temple. And he says, since they were supported by the tithes that people gave, they were able to spend their entire time focused on music. So
I just want to point out,
yes,
just as an asterisk, that the Rambam in his codes, he writes that the only group that had to be Levim are the actual singers. The musicians could be non-Levim. So I'm just throwing that out there, since we're saying this, just for the sake of full transparency, that the avoda, according to the Rambam, is the singing
shir
part.
Shir
shir. And but when it comes to the instrumental part, he says that it could be the music, the instruments, the music performed through instruments could be done.
Could be. Now,
yes.
Not everyone does agree with the Rambam, but even so, in practice, at least it
Yes.
appears from the Rebut Levi, that it was the Levium, my ancestors, by the way, who
That's why
who
I
did
was
that.
doing the transparency.
I
thing. I don't
understand
like
you.
it when you try to take more territory than is what is coming to you.
I understand it was a dig at me. Okay,
And also
okay
in
with that.
support of my ancestors who might have played a musical instrument. There was a period of time where I played the ukulele. Rabbi Yissochar. Rabbi Yissochar was a mentor of mine during that time. He once showed me how to play a tune on the ukulele. I just wanted to make it clear that my ancestors could have played music there.
Perhaps in some future episode, I will bring out my didgeridoo and do a little bit of Australian.
And maybe we could play something together.
Australian culture. Okay.
Oh, My Darling Clementine is the only tune I know. That's the one tune. I can play any song to Oh, My Darling Clementine.
Yes, I know.
The entire song list. But so if you could practice that, we'll do it together.
I don't want to waste any more of Rabbi Yissochar's time. Reb Suki, his claim to fame is that he was in yeshiva with us in Itri and the Kollel Mishkan Torah. But aside from that, he is a famous composer, musician, producer of some of the great Jewish music throughout history, great Jewish concerts throughout history, whether it was he composed some amazing songs, Keli Chish Goali, for example, right? The other one is it's a posuk from Eov. What was that song? I forget what it was called. There you go. That God's judgment is deeper than even the land, and some beautiful, beautiful songs. And he enabled, produced, and really created a lot of the music that the Jewish world has been fueled by, has been inspired by, and has been running on for years and years. And as we both, Rabbi Karsh and I both did a little research and found a wonderful article in Mishpacha that attributes
That's how we knew about the composed songs.
That's the only way we knew about that.
We wouldn't have known about it.
And Rav Hutner encouraging you to continue in music, albeit not playing at weddings after age 20. So let me begin with one question. Just a question. You've been involved in music for so long and in such an intensive way and in so many different varied ways, composing and directing and playing. You play piano, if I remember correctly, amongst other things. Right? Probably not.
It's like you're saying, I just want to, what you've just done to Rabbi Yissochar over there. It's like you're building it up, and then you say something like, you play piano, if I remember correctly.
Oh, sorry. We can edit that out.
That's like with like.
Yeah. It's like saying La'aniya's deity. So it doesn't actually mean I'm humble. It's just a way of saying it, right? So anyway,
I believe you.
Can you help clarify to us just something that we were discussing last week? This idea that there's the wisdom of music and how it pertains to spirituality and to the soul. How would you understand something about? If I would ask you, what's the great wisdom of music? What would be your response? What is your response to that?
So definitely, the first thing that comes to mind is that it's definitely something way above my pay grade, definitely way above. But because, let me just say, it's a delight to reconnect. If this is all we can get at this point, then I'll take it. It's fondest memory.
It's not much, but you'll take it.
Right, but really fond memories of both of you be coming in, being who you were, and developing yourselves to your current positions. It's humbling, and it's a delight to be able to connect. Anticipating this question, let me. Music is obviously much bigger than what we experience right here. It's something much greater. To illustrate, to illustrate, right next to where Mishkan Torah was, um, I think it was, I think it was right afterwards that it actually became a Beis HaMusar for a Volba.
Yeah.
And I
It
used
was
to,
even when we were there. It was also.
even when we were there.
Yeah.
So at one of the shmuzim that I attended by Rav Volba, he asked such a humbling question. He said, how could it be that we daven Shemona Esrei at least 3 times a day, 7 days a week, our whole lives? And how could it be that every time we daven Shemona Esrei, it has a different flavor? And I was really blown away because he's revealing what his experience is. Baskin Robbins at the time was up to 31 flavors, but he tasted a different flavor in every Shemona Esrei. And his answer was that the tefillas that we say when we're davening, our tefillas ricochet off the cosmos, off the planets, off the different, what's the right word, constellations in heaven. And because they're always in a different position, they, even if we're saying the same thing, they create a new niggin every single time we daven. So it's always different. So we experience that difference, something so far away. Another example is Reb Don Segal. I had the privilege of when he didn't live yet in Yerushalayim, of lending him our home, and he was very grateful afterwards to be able to stay in Yerushalayim. So he kept on coming back to say thank you. Like I got a taste of a tzaddik's hakar satayv. And he would bring me svarim, and he brought me a set of svarim called Shomer Amunim. And he read with me a mimer that's called Mimer Tzali Veroni. And over there he brings down a Zohar HaKadosh that says that Hashem did a chesed in the world, that he made that, let's say if people would coordinate, let's make it that at a certain time, it's going to be total quiet. It's going to be quiet in the world, and you can't hear anything. So the Zohar said that it would be impossible, because if you get everybody to turn off their machines and they're not walking around, Zohar says you can't stop the waves in the ocean of crashing. You can't stop the heartbeat of man. So there's always going to be noise. There's always going to be like a white noise in the world. And the Zohar says that is a chesed, because if we would indeed hear the masikus of the niggin that the Olomos are singing to the Rebbeinu Shalom at every single second, if it would be quiet, we would hear that. And if we would hear that, our neshamas would jump out of our gufs. We wouldn't be able to stay alive. So, and so obviously we see that there's something very, very big about music. Within music itself, you get glimpses of a lot of secrets. You get little glimpses. If I can illustrate a little bit, like I think that if I may, right, that's a major chord. You're able to hear that?
A little bit. Yeah, we heard it at the beginning. Yeah.
Okay. So there's major chords and there's minor chords. And every major chord has its relative minor. And if it's a different key, so and all of the technicalities, they're identical if it's in major or if it's in minor. And I think that it's a clear thing that the Jewish song in Gullus is usually minor. And there are major, there are marches that we borrow from and that we aspire to. There's Hasidic marches, Malchustic marches, but generally we understand that we're still living in the minor. We're living in the minor, and we're moving towards the major. There's so I think that all of history is like charted in the music. It's really one big thing. The fact that we live in the minor, but the Geula is right there in the Gullus. It's just that it's unraveling and it's developing and it's building up. It's one big piece that's going to come to a. And there are other examples of that. But really, I'll tell you, Mordechai, I listened a little bit to the first podcast on music, and I heard a quote that you quoted, where Hela de Rebbe, Rav Moshe. I heard a quote from you that I never heard from him, and it was really so beautiful. It was that it's somewhere that speech is the language of the intellect, and mathematics is the language of nature, and music is the language of the soul. And when I was thinking about that afterwards, I was thinking that speech is the language of the intellect. Which intellect? Das Elyon or our Das? I think our Das, because that's what speech is. It's for us in this world. Speech is the language of intellect. Mathematics is the language of nature. Nature now or nature now, l'chara, because mathematics, I think that they teach now new math and things like that. Like the mathematics is the mathematics we know from the Beis Hamikdash, from other things. By us, 1 + 1 = 1. It's not. It's a whole different math. Math is the language of nature, but music is the language of the soul. There's only one soul. The soul is at Tzelem Elokim. I think that perhaps, maybe the special thing that we see in the Sfarim about music is because music is the one edler thing that can give us a little bit of a connection to that higher world while we're still in this world. And even if we can just grab on in a very superficial way, maybe we're just grabbing on. Maybe nowadays people grab on because people are just grabbing for something to feel alive. So maybe they grab on more to the rhythm. But really, like in anything superficial, you have a walnut. Walnuts are delicious and nutritious, and it's great. But one person might just hold on to the peel of the walnut, to the klippus of the walnut. That's the only shaykhus that he's shaykh to. But that's also a shaykhus. The peel is also a shaykhus. But that's a little bit what I was thinking. That's what I've been trying to develop for myself. If you're Muslim.
Beautiful, very beautiful.
Yeah, I like it.
Question: You mentioned how most of the music is in minor, music of Golos. Is that true of only Ashkenazi music or also Sephardi music, Eidot HaMizrach? I had the experience, I was at a minyan in Los Angeles. It's called the JFK Minyan, which stands for Just for Kiddush. It's an outreach minyan Persian, and I was there for Shabbos, and Slichus was that Motzei Shabbat. And I will be honest, I had more fun and greater enjoyment and happiness at that Sephardi Slichot than I do at most Ashkenazi chuppahs. It was uplifting, right? The tune, Chatanu lefanecha. Oh wow, right? And it was very different. I was at a Shabbaton once in Boston, Sephardi community in Brookline, where I've been for 12 years, and we were sitting around singing Sephardi's Mirot. It was just unbelievable. as an Ashkenazi guest from New York came and sat with us, and he says, "Oh, can I start something?" And I said, with some trepidation, "Yeah, go ahead." And he started singing something from, I think it was Slichus. It was a regular Shabbos. It was nothing to. It was just like it took everything down, you know. So why do you think there's such a difference? And is there a difference? I mean, I think there is, but
Well, first of all, I don't think that there's a blanket difference. There's so much in all the cultures. It's
uh-huh.
something refreshing for us. I will mention that in most of the holy tunes that we know, songs with the Messiah, almost always there's this blend of major and minor together. Whether it's Eicha that starts in major.
We can't hear the music,
Not
unfortunately.
able to hear. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It starts in major. Da 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 da. I want to mention that in support of your experience in the Saudi Minyan. I don't know if you remember when Rav Moshe's daughter was not well, and he spent a lot of time in the States, and he actually spent a Yom Kippur just trying to find a shul in Manhattan where he was going to be because he really needed to be in the hospital. And he went into a Sephardi minyan where they had different piyutim instead of tefillah zaka. And he came back and he sounded just like you sounded, with that he was so inspired. He said if he had the power to to enact, that he found it much more inspiring.
I see. That is beautiful. Yeah.
Is there something advice you might have for musicians, for people who already seem to be influencing communities via music? Do you have life experience that you feel could help mentor people in that position? And what is the kind of thing you might say to somebody like that? Let's say they are a musician, they are playing music, and it's part of their avodas Hashem. Is there something you've learned from your life experience that you think would be important for somebody in a position like that?
I think that what I would say is that I think there's a saying, you can't give what you don't got. So we have to realize that by default the music starts nowadays. We always have to suspect that we're holding on to the klipa more than the walnut itself. And the more we can try to internalize the message of the music, the message of the words, getting to a good place with it, just like in davening, mindfulness and being aware of not just saying the words, but the words are where it starts. It's not where it ends. It's just music communicates. It seems to pierce the heavens, and it pierces hearts. So it's a tremendous opportunity, and to try to dig into deeper levels. The deeper the level that we can get to ourselves, and to give it over with joy, to try to get ourselves into. I was once with many years ago. I was still a Becher, and Mordechai Ben David came to Eretz Yisrael, and we were going to sing for a very sick child, and so the child was in a room waiting for everything to get ready. There were a lot of Bachram there, yeshiva Bachram, and I was with Mordechai, and we were talking about like a very serious topic, and he was very into that topic, and he wasn't in a simcha dika place at all. And they came in and they told him, it's time. The boy's name was Menachem Erenthal. That was the big organization, Zikr Menachem. Was formed by his parents. They said, "Okay, Menachem's ready. We can go in." Mordechai takes my hand and he starts dancing with a tremendous spirit. And he's dancing in, they give him the microphone and he starts singing. And I said to him afterwards, I said, Mordechai, how did you do that? I know where you were holding right before. And he looks at me like I'm out of my mind. He says, what are you talking about? That's the only way it works. In other words, he developed, part of his professionalism was to develop a simcha switch that's actually like authentic, and that's, and he just puts on that thing and he's from head to toe, Mole Simcha. So that's what I would tell people. Bring on the Simcha, bring on the meaning, the depth, the message, and lift off, especially Jewish music. Jewish music is a connection to Hashem. It's not just self-entertainment. So it's a tremendous opportunity, whoever can do it. In a way, they're a shaliach tzibur. They're the chazan on Yom Kippur. Chaim.
Nice.
Thank you very much, Chaim. Yes, my tip for people on Zoom meetings is blow on your drink so people think it's coffee or tea. So when you have your whiskey, just you can actually. Anyway, so I want to welcome Pinchas Becher, who is here with us from Neve Michael, which is a moshav right near Ramat Beit Shemesh, and he is a lawyer, a combat soldier who has been recently in Gaza, a long time in Gaza, and but he's home now for a while, and he's also my son, and which is
for full
added bonus.
Full disclosure.
Yeah, full disclosure, correct. And so what we wanted to do is we'll interrupt this a little bit. We want to do a little bit of an Israel update. We're not even sure what we want to do. I don't know if you prepared something, Penny, but we would like a little bit of a message from Israel. I don't know what you're experiencing, what people are feeling, etc. And it could be from your experience in Gaza, it could be from experience just in general in Israel. But if you could just hit us with it.
Sure. So I'm here to talk about a topic far less optimistic, I guess, than what you were just talking about. So I hate to interrupt with a little bit of negative news or less than positive, but I figured I would give a little bit of an update as a reservist and as a civilian. Many of us are now tasked with wearing both of those hats on and off quite often. And so I figured I'd give a little bit of an update from each one of those perspectives. So starting with an update as a reservist, I am in a tank battalion. I myself am an infantry soldier, and we are a company of infantry soldiers attached to the tank battalion. The way that works is we operate primarily in areas and in environments that the tanks are either ineffective or exposed or both. So urban environments would be close, tight quarters. That would be one key area of operations that we have. Another one would be wooded areas or certain terrains that would expose tanks to anti-tank weaponry, which we would then be tasked with providing a answer to or eliminating. So our unit was called up on October 7th. We did just over 100 days of reserve duty from October 7th and on. There was intense combat in Gaza towards the end, many months in Gaza. We then had 6 months of civilian life, followed by another 3 months of reserve duty in and around the Zikim area, so North Gaza, the actual most northern and western point of Gaza. We operated in the areas of northern Gaza at the time that were hadn't yet seen major maneuvers by the IDF. That was followed by another 3 months of civilian life, and now we're back for another 2.5 months for round 3. I'll get into a little bit more of the specifics of what we're going to be doing this time a bit later on. But just how are we? What are we up to? What is the general mood? So obviously by now there are definitely dwindling numbers of reservists who are able to show up for another 3 months or 2.5 months after only a 3 month break. So that's something that we're definitely seeing a lot of. There's a lot of wear and tear. There were many injuries. Some have recovered, some less. There's a lot of just fatigue, just general fatigue, frustration. There's a lot of frustration. Morale has definitely been hit hard, I would say. On the other hand, we're still very highly motivated. There's a lot of reservists still showing up, a lot of reservists doing their job in an excellent way, and that's still happening. My wife said that when we were discussing whether I would join this round of fighting or not, I had been injured in the first round, and I'm still in the process of recovering from that injury. Some complications with nerve damage, and so we were discussing whether I was going to take a break from that process and join this round of fighting. And I said, look, if anybody has an excuse, right? I have an excuse. I got hit by shrapnel in the first round. I did another round. I returned at the end of the first round to join the fighting in Khan Yunis, and then went back to rehab, then did another round, and now we're back for a third round. And my wonderful wife said, yes, that's true, but by now everybody has an excuse. And every single reservist has a valid excuse by now, which struck me as incredibly true. And anybody with a family certainly has a valid excuse not to show up to this round. Anybody with children, anybody with a business, people who have careers, students. I know there's students who are with us who've kind of missed out on an entire year of studies. There are people whose families have suffered. We were discussing this on Shabbat, and by my estimation, most of the reservists that are serving with me have been hit financially in a significant way, in one way or the other. So whether it be their careers, their businesses, whether it be extra costs that they incur during their reserve duty. So there's lots of help out there, and Rabbi Becher, Abba, has definitely been helping out with a lot, and that's really, really appreciated. But I just wanted to give kind of that perspective on what's going on.
Just to clarify
Yep.
for a second, because it could be that other people, they don't understand what you mean. I just want to clarify that as a reservist, you actually can make the decision. Now, the Army does not force you at this stage to do your reserve duty. That if you have a legitimate excuse, you can opt out. That's what you're saying, that a lot of people are still opting in even though they have an excuse to opt out.
Yeah, so formally speaking, that's not the case. Formally speaking, you get a tzav, you get a order to show up. You have to show up, and there are legal consequences. Practically speaking, that's exactly correct. Meaning there's a discussion had between officers and their soldiers as to whether they're able to show up reasonably before the orders go out. And then they'll discuss it amongst themselves. And if there's a valid excuse, then they'll choose not to send an order to that soldier, not to send it to that soldier. So yeah, but thank you for clarifying that. It's a really good point. Another thing I've noticed is and I've gotten this sense from people in the US, and I've gotten the sense from people here, is that there's kind of this, because of the ceasefire, that there's kind of a respite, so to speak, in the fighting. From the perspective of a reservist, there is no, there are reservists in Lebanon, there are reservists in Syria, there are reservists still in Gaza, and we're going to get back to that again later, and especially in the West Bank. There are loads and loads of reservists who are still actively fighting. And of course, the regular army has been heavily engaged in operations in the West Bank for quite a while. And so this kind of the view that a lot of, I think, civilians and probably a lot of people in the US might have is that there's a little bit of a respite and we're getting a little bit of a break. That's not really true. And Hamas is using this time to rearm and recruit on large scales, and I can't get into specifics, but on very large scales. And we should be doing the same. We should really be doing the same thing. We should be recruiting and we should be rearming. Unfortunately, a lot of us don't have that opportunity, and that's something that is already above my pay grade. That's pretty much what I have for my perspective as a reservist.
Thank you. We're very honored. I'm very, very proud of you, and I'm very grateful for especially the sacrifices that you're making by leaving your family when you go, but also that you were injured and that you went back after you were injured. And I just want to say that we're trying our best on this side, because while you go there, your father goes on life support, and then people have to spend 24 hours trying to keep him going. It's not easy. There's been times when I said, just send me to Gaza. Send me to Gaza so I don't have to listen to this man. If you only knew what it does, it's like a voodoo doll. It's like he gets stuck with pins.
If I can interrupt this hysterical rant just for a second.
I just want Pinchas to know what you look like.
Just want to mention that
look like when he's out there. He's out there.
I am the host. I can mute you. I can mute you if I want.
And you were a mess. I was just a mess. But anyways, just wanted you to know. There's some of us working hard on this side.
Right. Understood. Penny, I just wanted to introduce on the screen here is Rabbi Yissochar Berry, known as Suki Berry, of the Suki and Ding fame, producer, composer, musician, friend of ours, although after this I'm not so sure, but has been a friend of ours for a long time. And so we were talking about music. So but yes, if you want to get back to the civilian component, I think you're about to say something about that.
We are watching our time.
Oh yeah, it's interesting. I just want to mention during the 73 war, Reb Shlomo Carlebach went around to the troops singing, and it was famous. They used to bring, and we know that already back in the Second World War, there were entertainers and singers going to troops and singing. Is that still happening to some, or to a much lesser degree? It's just not even possible because if you're in combat, yeah.
So that's a great question. There were times at the beginning of the war where that was happening. We had a great joke because there's a very famous musician, Yishai Ribo, who was supposed to appear, show up, and when we were still operating in and around Be'eri, so he was supposed to come to Be'eri and meet the soldiers there and sing, and people were pretty excited because he's a great musician and he is pretty famous. And when we got there, it was not Yishai Ribo, but it was an unknown singer called Yishai Ivo. And the poor man came, came to entertain the troops and was met with just a lot of disappointment. So it was, we reference back to that quite a bit.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah,
That's awesome.
I thought I might be. Am I able to share my screen for this next short bit?
Yes. Let me just check with Rabbi Yissochar. How much longer do you have? Because we may switch back to you and then.
I think till another like 12 minutes.
Another 12 minutes. So
So
if you don't mind, Penny, if we could just have one more question for Rabbi Yissochar, and then we can get back to you, and then I'll allow you to share screen. I can.
Absolutely.
Okay. I've just allowed that. So in terms of Rabbi Yissochar, Suki, you mentioned about this idea, which I found beautiful, to switch on the simcha, which Mordechai ben David was able to do. But I understand that the role of music is not only simcha. Right? Music can have multiple moods and have multiple functions. So simcha, I think we all understand that music can elevate you and uplift you and inspire you, and it's fantastic. I love that's the music that I enjoy the most. But there's other roles for music as well, not just simcha. How do you see that?
I think that there's other roles for simcha as well. Rav Hutner Zatzal said that, like sound waves, I don't know how this works out with Zoom, but like sound waves, when you're talking to a person, you might not see the sound waves, but without the sound waves, he wouldn't be able to hear you. He said to make any kind of kinyanim in Torah, the sound waves are simcha. Without simcha, you won't get the Torah. You won't be able to connect to it. Now, I can't say that I know what that means, but I'm hearing that simcha plays more of a role than it did for Mordechai ben David when he was going to sing for that boy. Simcha, I think, is a way of life. It's not just by in our Yiddishkeit where we are and what we're headed for. There was one more thought that I wanted to share.
I just throw out there was a line, a Hasidic line, which I've heard quoted often, that Misha Nichnas Ov Mematim Besimcha. When Ov comes, the way it's typically translated is you lessen the simcha. But the Hasidic way of explaining it is the Misha Nichnas Ov Mematim, you make less. But how do you make less? Besimcha. You make less besimcha. In other words, there's a way of making less also with simcha. Sorry, I interrupted there.
Yeah,
go.
That's for sure. Like again, there's very high levels. The only person that I even hear of nowadays that there's talk that maybe he's shayach to that. There's a Yid in Eretz Yisrael these days. It's called the Yanuka. That
we were at an event together, you and I. We went. My brother invited us 2 years ago or something like that. Pesach time. We both went, and I even got to talk to you afterwards. It was an elevated kind of experience.
Right. He claims to be very in touch with these things that we're talking about on a practical level. That's what I'm hearing. That's what I understand. That's what I hear from him. I once heard from Rav Moshe that we're all headed towards a time. Right now, we're in Gullus. We're in part of a process, of a very long process of Hashem spreading His goodness, and the end game. The end game of this whole process is Tchias HaMesim, where Rav Moshe was explaining to me that by Tchias HaMesim there will be the perfect form of everything in a physical state. In other words, the battle between spirituality and materialism, the battle will have been won. Materialism, this is the way I understood it, that materialism will surrender to spirituality, and there will be materialism, but the materialism is on the same side, as the spirituality. So, so I don't know exactly. I'm not sure what triggered that thought. But Mordechai, what was the question again? That
I was asking that the role of music is to a great degree simcha, but there are other roles of music as well, which are not necessarily simcha.
right,
Your
right.
response that there are many roles of simcha, which is true, but in terms of music, I think your thought at least tells me that music is an example where the material and the spiritual are working together. I'm using physical, well, not me,
Right.
but physical instruments, physical sounds, vibrations, percussion, wind, strings, etc., and they are producing something which is
That's right.
operating on a spiritual level, and it's almost like a taste of Tchias HaMeisim.
Right. It's very simple to make the observation that all instruments become instruments after they finished their poshet tafkid in this world. You take the tail of a horse and it becomes the bow of a violin. You take a tree that finished its full maturity and it becomes the violin itself. You take an animal's skin and it becomes the drums. Everything after it's finished. So I think that's where music is, where that it all comes together in that line that you quoted, that music is the language of the soul. Music is the place where, that place that we're going to, that place that everything is good and calm and peaceful and simchadik, and where everything is just a reflection and an expansion of the Rebbeinu Shalom. So the only thing that we have in this world that we can grab onto in an edel way is the music. And again, the music that we mostly listen to and get exposure to, maybe it's just the klipa of the walnut. Maybe it's just that. But that's what it is. It has a shaykhus to the music. There's something. The end of that story in the Shomer Amunim, in the Tzali Vironi book that quoted the Zohar of that there's always that music. So the Shomer Amunim himself wrote that he feels that that's why when a baby is born into the world and he's crying and the mother takes him and starts singing a little lullaby or go and he calms down, the Shomer Amunim wrote that he thinks that the baby calms down because it's reminding him of the niggin that he heard, and it's giving him some peace. It's giving him something. So I think that music is really a very high thing. The Chachma music. Who knows? There's so much and on so many different levels. I wish I knew how to. But that's the. I think that that's what I'm able to share and what I'm able to.
Thank you.
We really appreciate your time,
We do.
appreciate your
Right.
input and the wisdom.
Right.
Great to reconnect with you. It's been many, many
Yeah.
years since
Yeah.
back in Unsdorf. You're still in Unsdorf. So
Right.
only a few doors from where Mishkan Torah was, which is awesome.
It's still there.
And you're still
It
producing,
says Mishkan Torah right
still
over.
producing, still
I got it.
composing, still playing.
My same
speaking
seat.
Torah.
You sit in your same seat.
I sit in my same seat in Trisk.
That's awesome.
Unbelievable.
That's
All
awesome.
right. Thank you
And
very,
also,
very
you
much.
should know when we were talking about bringing somebody connected to music to help us understand it, you were the only person that we thought of.
But next time we might get Yishai Ivo. We'll see.
Now that
if
we
he's
know that
available,
there
now
is a
now that we
Yishai
know about
Ivo.
him.
Right.
Yes, we
Yeah.
may.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, Zaygas
Thank you,
are
Rabbi Yissochar.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
We're going
you
to
very much,
continue.
Yissochar.
Going to continue with
Yeah.
Penny now, and you can share your screen. I believe it will work.
A minute. So on a lighter note, and in
Yes.
connection with what you were discussing, this is a picture of Leonard Cohen. If you
Oh,
can see that,
yes,
who came to
famous. Yes,
sing for which I thought was also quite a beautiful thing.
that is beautiful. Yes, Yom Kippur War. Yeah, yeah.
That's
Wow.
right. It's a pretty amazing picture. Back to Gaza. So this is a little bit of what is going on in Gaza at the moment with the changes as a result of the ceasefire. So if we take a look here, this path right around here is what people are calling the Netzarim corridor. And what that was kind of a position held by the IDF that split North Gaza from South Gaza.
So can I just ask
Civilians,
you if somebody's
yeah,
not able to see the map, because some people are just listening. So
Sure.
where is there a city or a town in Eretz Yisrael, in Israel, that corresponds to where you're talking about?
yeah. So if you could see right here, this is Be'eri. So
Okay.
just in between Be'eri and Re'im would
Okay.
be the entrance to the Netzarim corridor
Okay.
when you cross into Gaza. So Israel till yesterday held positions all along the Netzarim corridor, splitting the Gaza Strip between the north and south and controlling traffic and movement of civilians between the north and the south. An additional very important position, which comes up a lot in the news, is the Philadelphia corridor, which is all the way down on the southernmost part of Gaza, on the other side of the Egyptian border. Another position held by the IDF, crucial in preventing the flow of weapons and people in and out of Gaza through the Egyptian border. Now, at the moment, Israel, as part of the deal, has pulled out of this Netzarim corridor. There's still a checkpoint on the Netzarim corridor, which is being manned by U.S. private contractors, private military contractors, and they are supposedly vetting the movement of civilians between the north and the south. And instead, Israel is now, for those who can see, this gray area, which envelops the Gaza Strip inside of Gaza, which varies from about, at the most, a kilometer or 800 meters to about 400 meters at the shortest, is a buffer zone. And that's where we're going to be heading, in this buffer zone, to protect Israel from incursions, but from within Gaza. And so the IDF is still maintaining positions all the way around Gaza to create a buffer zone. And again, it's a short distance from the border, but that's kind of just the facts of where we are at the moment in Gaza. And what's really interesting is this, to me at least, is this all the talk surrounding President Trump's suggestion, or more like, and it seemed almost like an afterthought, which was, let's move them all out of Gaza, have the U.S. take over Gaza, and rebuild it. Now, in the first few days following that, there was quite a bit of discussion about how this was probably just a negotiation tactic. This probably wasn't any real suggestion. And now that could be a good negotiation tactic. And there were a lot of people discussing how that might be a good negotiation tactic. But yesterday or this morning, BB interview on Fox News between BB and Mark Levin, I believe. And BB gave a lot more detail on what this suggestion might actually look like. And I thought that was going to be interesting to share. So in BB's kind of outline for this plan, there would be no U.S. troops in Gaza. Rather, there would be an optional exit for civilians from Gaza. They could either opt in and opt out, followed by a reconstruction. Well, pause before the reconstruction. There would very likely, this was kind of reading in between the lines, but being that there would be no U.S. troops in Gaza, Israel would fight the remaining factions of Hamas in Gaza. Then there would be a reconstruction funded by the Arab states, followed by civilians who would like to come back to Gaza, coming back, those who are unaffiliated with terror. Now, it gives a little bit of a little more realistic kind of view of what this might look like. It's still quite a unique and unique idea, which has a lot of very major hurdles in it. But I thought it would be interesting to just for 1 minute look at the actual map of Gaza and talk about what's going on there to see how this might actually be a slightly more realistic option than the way it's being portrayed. So almost all of northern Gaza, from Bet Lahia all the way down to actually just above to about here, which is Az-Zahara, I didn't know that until just now, is mostly uninhabitable and destroyed, other than most of Gaza City. So now most of Gaza City, so on either side of Gaza City, right? So Bet Lahia, Jabalia, all that is largely destroyed. Everything south of Gaza City is largely destroyed, but large parts of Gaza City are intact, okay? And can inhabit an estimated, nearly 1 million civilians can live there. Everything south of Gaza City, all the way down to about here, is also mostly destroyed, including Deir al-Balah. Okay, parts of Barij are totally untouched, and there's kind of a mostly uninhabited area around here. And then if we keep moving down south to Khan Yunis, that is also mostly destroyed, Khan Yunis, but there are many parts around here, Mawasi and further south, that still have quite a bit of standing buildings. And that's what Gaza looks like. Now, so if we were to talk about a optional exit for civilians from Gaza, that wouldn't mean 1.8 or 2.2 or whatever the estimations are about how many civilians in Gaza need to leave. It would mostly be an exit of those civilians whose homes have been destroyed and don't want to be there anymore, mostly in North Gaza. So I think that this clarification from Bibi, in my view as a regular civilian, is actually very interesting. And if it has U.S. support, and Trump is somehow able to get the Arab nations on board with this, this could be a very, very interesting direction for things to go. So just thought I'd share that.
Fascinating.
Thank you. That's given, for myself, just seeing the map and having you talk about the different areas has given me so much greater clarity. And I don't think I'm uninformed in general about this, but this has been
certainly not.
This has been very beneficial, and hopefully our viewers will
also, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, if you go to the YouTube version of this, then you can see the map. This one, it's very worthwhile going to the YouTube version.
And it is, this will be recorded and on YouTube.
Yeah.
And we hope to, if it works with Penny's schedule, reserve duty, family, work, etc., would like to do something like this, maybe shorter, but every week or two. I think this will be extremely valuable for people who are watching and listening to this to get some real, authentic insider knowledge of what's going on in Israel.
Yeah.
And want to thank you, Penny, for
lots of military
us.
secrets, if at all possible.
None of this was.
Yeah.
The Mossad.
I'll just leave you with a couple resources I think people could benefit from.
Thank you. That'd be great.
First of all, what we're looking at is liveaumap.com, which tracks conflicts all over the world pretty accurately. And I've seen them pretty accurately track what's been going on in Israel. Preston Stewart is a YouTuber who does excellent briefs on Israel. And two reporters that I can recommend reading are Seth J. Frantzman of the Jerusalem Post and Alex Winston of the Jerusalem Post. Two very well-informed, finger on the pulse reporters here in Israel.
Thank you. Thank you. And again, we're very, very grateful for your service.
Yes. Thank you very much, Pinchas.
Means a huge amount.
It's a privilege.
Thank you for the time now, and great to see you.
And just again,
Great to see you
cannot tell you how devoted I am to making sure that your father survives your service in the Army. It's a lot. There's like a team of us working on it. There's been a few times where we thought we lost him, but we kept him going.
Ignore him.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you for your service. All right. I'll see you. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Be well.
Well, folks, that's a wrap for today. And two amazing guests. Suki Berry, one of the greats of Jewish music. Pinchas Becher, one of the greats of Israel Defense Force, etc. The Becher family. Yeah, very proud. And that was hopefully we'll try to have this as a regular segment. If Penny is unavailable because of his military service, then we'll see if I can get my other son to contribute. But in the meantime,
I was thinking that, we could have, like, there's one thing where you're just having a couple minutes of Penny every week, or there's another thing where you're having like another option, because he could have gone longer. He had a lot of practical information, so we could be putting out two different things using two different hats.
Not a bad idea.
In a week.
Not a bad idea. Okay, folks, you can hear us on Spotify. You can hear us on Apple Music. You can see us on YouTube. Please subscribe. Please watch. And if you like it, then like it. That is a weird thing to say. Is that a strange thing to say? If you like this, please like in an official like.
Could you show your fingers again?
Like.
If you're on Spotify, you may want to go to YouTube to watch Mordechai point with his finger.
Yes, that's also right. Okay. It's been great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye, Karsh. Thank you.
Thank you, Mordechai. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Be well. Bye-bye.